By the time his third wife died, the Duke stopped believing in accidents. 3 wives, all pregnant, all dead the same way. The court whispered about curses, but as the Duke looked at the faces in his circle, his blood turned cold. Every death had been witnessed. Every cry for help had been overheard. The killer wasn't a shadow in the night. They were close enough to watch them suffer, and they'd been there from the very beginning. The summons arrived on black parchment, sealed with the Queen's crest. Not a request, a command. Duke Alaric of Thornmere stood in the great hall as the Queen's messenger read the decree aloud. Every noble in the kingdom had gathered to witness it. The marble floor gleamed beneath his boots. The chandeliers burned with 1,000 candles. The faces around him watched with hunger, disguised as concern. "You are of age," the Queen's voice came cold and final through the messenger's lips. "The line must continue. The kingdom cannot risk uncertainty. You will take a wife before the season ends." Alaric did not flinch. He had known this moment would come. He was 32, 3 years past the age his father had married. The Thornmere line stretched back 7 centuries without interruption. That weight pressed on his shoulders every morning when he woke. He bowed low. "I will obey, Your Majesty." The court exhaled. Relief rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. But then Alaric lifted his head and spoke again. "However, I will not accept the candidates you have chosen for me." Silence crashed down like a door slamming shut. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "You refuse our selections." "I refuse to marry someone I have not chosen myself." His voice did not waver. "I will take a wife, but she will be my choice, not yours." The court erupted in whispers. Nobles leaned toward each other. Fans snapped open. Eyes flickered with scandal. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "Very well. You have until the autumn moon. Choose wisely, Duke Thornmere. The kingdom is watching." Alaric bowed again and turned. As he walked through the crowd, he felt their stares like knives against his back. They expected him to fail. They expected him to choose poorly. They expected weakness. He would give them none of it. If you're ready for more stories where the unexpected happens, where the forgotten rise, and where the underdogs turn the game around, I make sure you hit that subscribe button now. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from and what you think. Will the Duke find a wife strong enough to survive what's coming? Or will the killer strike again before he even realizes the danger? Your thoughts are always welcome here at Power and Silence Whispers. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment of the drama, the revenge, and the secrets waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to the family. Now let's see what choice he makes. Alaric returned to Thornmere Castle and locked himself in his study for 3 days. He had a list of every eligible noblewoman in the kingdom. 47 names. He crossed out 44 without hesitation. Too young, too connected to rival houses, soon too eager to please, too desperate for power. He was not looking for beauty. He was not looking for obedience. He was looking for strength. By the end of the 3rd day, 3 names remained. Lady Arabella of Silver Vale, 24 years old, daughter of a minor lord whose estate bordered the northern mountains. She attended court functions but never spoke, never drew attention. She moved through rooms like smoke, present but unseen. Lady Matilda of Roosevale, 26 years old, daughter of a merchant lord who had earned his title through trade rather than blood. She was sharp-tongued and confident. She laughed too loudly for a lady. She asked questions no one else dared to ask. Lady Catherine of Westmere, 28 years old, daughter of one of the Queen's closest advisers. Perfect posture, perfect manners. See, perfect in every measurable way. Politically safe, socially untouchable. Alaric stared at the three names written in his own hand. He would not announce his decision. He would not make a spectacle. Instead, he would test them. Not their manners, not their beauty, not their ability to smile and curtsy and say the right words at the right time. He would test their ability to stand in a room where power existed and not shrink. The first invitation went to Lady Arabella. She arrived at Thornmere Castle on a grey afternoon. The sky hung low and heavy. Rain threatened but did not fall. She wore a pale green dress that made her look even smaller than she was. Alaric met her in the dining hall. The table had been set for two. Candles flickered between them. Servants moved silently along the walls. "Lady Arabella," he said. "Thank you for coming," she curtsied. Her eyes stayed on the floor. "Your Grace." They sat. The first course arrived. Soup made from winter vegetables and bone broth. Steam rose between them. Alaric watched her. She ate slowly, carefully. She did not look at him. She did not look at the servants. She did not look at anything except her bowl. "Tell me about Silver Vale," he said. She startled slightly. "It is quiet, Your Grace, peaceful. Do you enjoy it there?" "Yes, Your Grace." "Why?" She hesitated. Her spoon trembled in her hand. "It is safe." Alaric leaned back in his chair. "Safe from what?" Her eyes flickered up for just a moment, then down again. "From attention." Silence filled the space between them. Alaric asked more questions. She answered each one with as few words as possible. She withdrew further with every passing minute. By the time dessert arrived, she had stopped eating entirely. But Alaric noticed something else. Her eyes moved constantly. She watched the servants. She watched the doors. She watched him when she thought he wasn't looking. She was observing everything, but she did not act on any of it. She was a woman who saw the game being played, but she would never make a move. "Thank you for your time, Lady Arabella," Alaric said at the end of the meal. "I will send word soon." She curtsied and left without another word. Alaric dismissed her from consideration immediately. The second invitation went to Lady Catherine. She arrived 3 days later. The rain had finally come and gone. The sky was clear and blue. She wore a burgundy dress that matched the Thornmere crest perfectly. Her hair was arranged in an intricate style that must have taken hours. She smiled as she entered. "Your Grace, what an honor." They sat. The meal began. Catherine was everything a duchess should be. She sat with perfect posture. She used the correct fork. She laughed at exactly the right moments. She asked polite questions about the estate and the weather and the upcoming harvest. Alaric tested her with harder questions. Questions about policy, questions about trade agreements, questions about the northern border disputes. She answered every single one. Perfectly. Too perfectly. She said exactly what was expected. Nothing more. Nothing less. She had been trained for this her entire life. Every word had been rehearsed, every gesture calculated. "What do you think of the Queen's new taxation law?" Alaric asked. Catherine smiled smoothly. "I think Her Majesty is wise in all her decisions. Even if you disagreed with one, I would trust that she knows better than I do." Alaric set down his glass. "And if I made a decision you disagreed with, I would support you, Your Grace. A wife's duty is to stand beside her husband." She meant every word, and that was the problem. She would never challenge him, never question him, never push back. She would be a beautiful ornament, nothing more. "Thank you, Lady Catherine," Alaric said. "I appreciate your time." She left with the same perfect smile she had arrived with. Alaric crossed her name off the list. The third invitation went to Lady Matilda. She arrived the following week. She wore a deep blue dress that looked expensive but practical. Her hair was pulled back simply. No elaborate styling, No unnecessary jewelry. She walked into the dining hall and looked around with open curiosity. "This is beautiful," she said. "How old is the castle?" 700 years, Alaric said. "And you're responsible for all of it?" "Yes," she whistled softly. "That must be exhausting." Alaric blinked. No one had ever said that to him before. They sat. The meal began. Matilda did not wait for him to speak. She asked questions. Real questions, not polite ones. She asked about the estate's finances. She asked about the tenant farmers. She asked about the trade routes through Thornmere lands. And then she challenged him. "I heard you increased taxes on the northern villages last year," she said. "I did. Why?" "To fund repairs on the fortress walls." "Did you ask the villagers if they could afford it?" Alaric paused. "No." "Then how do you know they can?" Her tone was not accusatory. It was genuinely curious. She wanted to understand his reasoning. They talked for 2 hours. The meal grew cold. The servants refilled their wine glasses 3 times. And then Matilda smiled and said something that changed everything. "Do you play chess, Your Grace?" "I do." "Good." She stood and walked to the side table where a chess set sat. "Let's play." It was not a request. It was a challenge. Alaric followed her. They played in silence. Matilda moved her pieces with confidence. She did not hesitate. She sacrificed a knight to protect her queen. She cornered his bishop with her rook. She lost, but she made him work for it. When the game ended, she laughed. "You're better than I expected." "You're better than most men I've played." "Good." She met his eyes directly. "I don't plan to be most anything." Alaric made his decision in that moment. "Lady Matilda," he said, "would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" She did not look surprised. She looked pleased. "Yes, Your Grace, I will." The wedding took place 6 weeks later. The entire kingdom gathered to witness it. Nobles from every corner of the realm filled the cathedral. Banners hung from the ceiling in crimson and gold. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows and painted the floor in colors. Matilda walked down the aisle alone. She had insisted on it. No father to give her away, no one to hand her off like property. She wore a gown the color of fire. Her hair was crowned with gold. She did not smile sweetly. She smiled like a woman walking toward victory. Alaric stood at the altar and watched her come. He felt something he had not expected. Pride, not possession, not satisfaction, pride. The ceremony was long. The priest spoke about duty and lineage and the sacred bond of marriage. Alaric barely heard it. He was too busy watching Matilda's face as she repeated her vows. Her voice was steady, clear, unafraid. When it was over, they walked out of the cathedral together. The crowd erupted in cheers. Flowers rained down from the balconies. Bells rang across the city. The feast lasted until midnight. Music filled the great hall. Dancers spun in circles. Wine flowed like rivers. Matilda laughed and danced and spoke to everyone. She remembered names. She asked questions. She made the merchants' daughters feel like queens and the queens feel like friends. Alaric watched from his seat at the head table. He had chosen correctly. He was certain of it. That night they consummated the marriage in the Duke's chambers. The room was warm. The fire burned low. Matilda did not look nervous. She looked curious. Afterward, she lay beside him and said, "I think we'll do well together." Alaric believed her. Within 3 weeks, she was pregnant. The kingdom celebrated. Bonfires were lit. Prayers were offered. Gifts arrived from across the realm. The Thornmere line would continue. Everything was perfect. It began in the 4th month. Matilda woke one morning feeling exhausted. More tired than usual, she dismissed it. Pregnancy was draining, everyone said so. But the tiredness did not fade. By the end of the week, she could barely stand without feeling dizzy. Her hands shook when she tried to hold a teacup. Food tasted wrong. Everything tasted bitter. The physician was summoned. His name was Master Corliss. He had served the Thornmere family for 20 years. He was calm and professional. He examined Matilda carefully. He asked questions. He took notes. Then he smiled gently. "These things happen, Your Grace. The body is adjusting. Rest is the best medicine." Matilda rested. It did not help. 2 days later, the pain started, sharp and sudden. It doubled her over in the middle of dinner. Alaric caught her before she fell. They carried her to bed. The physician came again. He gave her something to drink, something bitter and dark. "For the pain," he said. The pain did not stop. By morning, Matilda knew. The child was gone. She felt the emptiness inside her like a wound. The physician confirmed it quietly. He worked for hours. Servants carried water and linens. Matilda gripped the bedsheets and did not scream. She would not give anyone the satisfaction of hearing her break. When it was over, Master Corliss wiped his hands and spoke quietly to Alaric in the hallway. "The child is lost, Your Grace. I'm sorry." Alaric felt the words like a punch to the chest. "Why?" "These things happen. First pregnancies are delicate. The body sometimes rejects them. Will she be all right?" "Physically, yes. She will recover. Emotionally," the physician shrugged. "That is harder to predict." Alaric returned to the bedchamber. Matilda lay pale and still against the pillows. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. "I'm sorry," he said. She did not look at him. "It's not your fault." "It's no one's fault." Now she looked at him. Her eyes were sharp, focused. "That's what he said." "Master Corliss?" "Yes. He's right." "Is he?" Alaric frowned. "What do you mean?" Matilda turned her head away. "I don't know. Something feels wrong." "You're grieving. That's natural." "Maybe." But her voice said she did not believe it. Matilda recovered slowly. It took weeks before she could walk without pain, months before she smiled again. But she did heal, and she became pregnant again. This time she was more careful. She rested more. She ate carefully. She avoided anything the physician told her to avoid. It did not matter. At 5 months she lost the second child. The same way, the same exhaustion, the same bitter taste in her mouth, the same sudden, devastating pain. Master Corliss said the same things. "These things happen. The body is unpredictable. You must be patient." Matilda did not cry this time. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. But something had changed in her. She started asking questions. "What's in the tonics you give me?" "Herbs to strengthen the womb. Nothing harmful." "Which herbs?" "Blessed thistle, red raspberry leaf, lady's mantle." "Are you certain they're safe?" Master Corliss looked offended. "I have served this family for 20 years. I would never—" "Then why does this keep happening?" He had no answer. Matilda stopped taking the tonics. She started watching what she ate. She started noticing patterns. Certain meals made her feel worse. Always the same dishes, always prepared the same way. She mentioned it to Alaric one night. "I think something I'm eating is making me sick." The physician said, "I don't care what he said. I know my own body." Alaric studied her face. "What do you want to do?" "I want to change everything. New cook, new kitchen, new physician if necessary." "That's extreme." "So is losing 2 children." Alaric could not argue with that. They made changes, slowly, carefully. They brought in a new cook. They ordered different food from different suppliers. Matilda became pregnant a 3rd time. This pregnancy lasted longer, 6 months, then 7. Hope began to creep back in, fragile but real. And then, at 8 months, it happened again. The same exhaustion, the same bitter taste, the same pain. This time, Matilda almost died. The bleeding would not stop. Master Corliss worked frantically. Alaric paced the hallway outside. He heard her screams through the door. When it was finally over, Matilda was barely conscious. The physician emerged, pale and exhausted. "She will live, but I do not recommend trying again. Her body cannot endure it." Alaric nodded numbly. He went to her bedside and sat in silence. Matilda's eyes were closed. Her breathing was shallow. When she finally spoke, her voice was a whisper. "Someone is doing this to me." Alaric's blood went cold. "What? This isn't natural. Someone is killing our children." "Matilda, promise me." Her eyes opened. They were fierce, burning. "Promise me you'll find out who." "I promise." She closed her eyes again. 3 days later, she died. Not from bleeding, not from infection, from a heart that simply stopped beating. Alaric did not attend the funeral. He locked himself in his chambers for 5 days. He did not eat, did not sleep. He sat in the dark and replayed every moment, every meal, every tonic, every reassurance from the physician. On the 6th day, he emerged. His face was hard, his eyes were cold. He called for the household records. Every meal served to Matilda, every servant present, every visitor who had entered the castle. He went through them line by line, and he found something, a pattern. Before every loss, the same meals had been served: roasted pheasant with root vegetables, wine from the same vineyard, bread from the same baker, and every single meal had been overseen by the same person, the steward, Cadmus Heir. Alaric's hands clenched into fists, but he could not act, not without proof. If he accused the steward without evidence, the man would disappear. Or worse, he would be protected by someone more powerful. Alaric needed to be certain, and there was only one way to do that. 6 months after Matilda's death, Alaric remarried. He chose Lady Arabella, the quiet girl from Silver Vale who watched everything but said nothing. She agreed immediately. She was honored, she said, grateful. Alaric felt like a monster, but he told himself it was necessary. He would protect her this time. He would control everything. He hired new physicians, new cooks, new attendants, but he kept the steward, because he needed to know if the pattern would repeat. Arabella became pregnant within weeks. Alaric watched her carefully. He documented everything: what she ate, who she spoke to, what medicines she took, and he watched Cadmus Heir. The steward moved through the castle with the same calm efficiency he always had. He oversaw the kitchens. He managed the staff. He was always present when the Duchess dined. At 4 months, Arabella began to feel ill. The same symptoms, the same progression. Alaric's stomach twisted. He wanted to stop it, but he needed to be certain. At 5 months, she lost the child. Alaric sat with her afterward. She cried quietly. He held her hand and felt the weight of his guilt crushing him. But now he knew. It was not chance. It was not her body. It was murder. Arabella lost 3 more children over the next 2 years. Each time, Alaric grew more certain. Each time, he hated himself more. After the 4th loss, Arabella stopped speaking. She sat in her chambers and stared out the window for hours. After the 5th, she stopped eating. After the 6th, she died, just like Matilda. Her heart simply stopped. Alaric stood over her body and felt nothing. He was numb, hollowed out. 2 wives dead, 9 children lost, and he still did not have proof. Alaric married a 3rd time, Lady Catherine. The perfect one, the politically safe choice. She was thrilled. She curtsied and smiled and thanked him for the honor. Alaric told her nothing about the others. He could not bear to see the fear in her eyes. This time he brought in outside help. A healer from the capital named Marin. She had a reputation for questioning everything, for trusting no one. 2 wives before you lost children, Alaric told her privately. Many children. I believe someone is causing it. Marin's eyes sharpened. Poison? I don't know, but I need you to find out. I'll need access to everything. The kitchens, the pantries, the wine cellars. You'll have it? Catherine became pregnant. Alaric did not tell her about his suspicions. He simply told her to be careful, to trust no one. She thought he was being overprotective, but she obeyed. For 6 months, the pregnancy held, and then it happened again. But this time, healer Marin was ready. She examined everything Catherine had eaten that day, the food, the water, the wine, and she found something, a trace, faint, almost undetectable, in the wine. This is not natural, she told Alaric. Someone added something to this. What is it? I don't know the exact substance, but it's designed to harm a pregnancy, to weaken the body until it can no longer sustain the child. Alaric's hands shook. Can you trace where it came from? I can try. Catherine survived, but the child was lost. She fell into the same spiral as the others. Silence, stillness, a slow fading. Alaric sat with her every day. He told her the truth this time, all of it. She listened with wide, terrified eyes. Someone has been killing them, she whispered. On purpose? Yes. But why? That's what I'm going to find out. Catherine died 3 months later. Her heart stopped in the middle of the night. 3 wives, all dead the same way. Alaric stopped believing in coincidence, and he stopped caring about proof. He would find the killer, and he would make them pay. The 4th wedding was not announced publicly. Alaric chose a woman the court had never heard of, a minor lady from a distant estate with no connections to anyone important. Her name was Lady Elowin. She was 29, sharp-eyed, quiet in the way that suggested she was listening to everything. Alaric met with her privately before the wedding. I need to tell you something, he said, and after I do, you can refuse this marriage. I will not hold it against you. Elowin folded her hands in her lap. I'm listening. 3 wives have died, all while pregnant, all under suspicious circumstances. Her expression did not change. Poison? Alaric blinked. How did you? It's the only explanation that makes sense. She tilted her head. You suspect someone in your household? Yes. And you're marrying me to prove it. Alaric's stomach dropped. She had figured it out immediately. Don't apologize. Elowin stood and walked to the window. I lost a sister 2 years ago. She was pregnant, healthy. Then she started feeling ill. The physician said it was natural. She died 3 months later. She turned to face him. I've been investigating her death ever since, and I think I know what killed her. Alaric stared at her. What? Someone in her household was poisoning her, slowly, deliberately. I found evidence, but not enough to convict anyone. Why didn't you come forward? Because no one would believe me. A grieving woman making accusations against a respected household, I would have been dismissed. Elowin stepped closer. But you believe it. Because you've seen it too. Alaric nodded slowly. Then here's my proposal, Elowin said. I'll marry you, I'll become pregnant, and I'll help you catch the killer. It's dangerous. I know. You could die. So could more women if we don't stop this. Alaric studied her face. She was serious, completely serious. Why would you risk this? Because someone murdered my sister, and I want justice. Alaric felt something shift inside him. For the first time since Matilda's death, he felt hope. Not just hope. Partnership. All right, he said. Let's catch a killer. The wedding was small, private, only essential witnesses. Elowin moved into Thornmere Castle and immediately began her investigation. She did not ask permission. She simply started. She questioned the servants. Not obviously. She chatted with them, asked about their families, their duties, how long they had worked at the castle. She toured the kitchens, the pantries, the wine cellars. She watched Cadmus Hale. The steward noticed her attention. He approached her one afternoon in the library. "Your Grace," he said smoothly, "is there something I can help you with?" Elowen smiled. "Just learning my new home." "Of course. If you need anything, please let me know. I've served this family for 30 years. I know every corner of this castle." 30 years? That's remarkable. I take pride in my work. I'm sure you do. Something flickered in the steward's eyes. Suspicion. Wariness. Elowen kept smiling. That night she told Alaric what she had found. He's been here for 30 years, which means this didn't start with Matilda. Alaric's blood ran cold. "You think he did this before?" "I think we need to look at your family history. Were there other suspicious deaths? Other pregnancies that ended badly?" They spent the next week going through old records, letters, journals, medical reports, and they found them. 4 women. Over the past 25 years, all married to members of the Thornmere family, all pregnant, all dead. The pattern stretched back decades. "He's been doing this for years," Elowen whispered. "Killing women, killing children, and no one ever noticed. Why?" Alaric's voice shook. "What could he possibly gain?" Elowen looked at him. "We need to find out." Elowen became pregnant. She announced it publicly. The castle celebrated. Gifts arrived, prayers were offered. But privately, Elowen and Alaric set their plan in motion. They had 2 kitchens prepare meals. One that went through the normal castle process, one that came directly from a trusted source outside the estate. The steward would not know which meal Elowen was actually eating. They kept detailed records. Every dish, every drink, every person who touched the food. And they waited. At 3 months, Elowen began eating meals from the castle kitchens, the ones the steward oversaw. Within days, she felt ill. The same symptoms: exhaustion, dizziness, a bitter taste in her mouth. She stopped eating those meals immediately, switched back to the safe food. The symptoms disappeared. They had proof, but they needed more. They needed to catch him in the act. Elowen came up with the plan. "We let him think it's working," she said. "I'll pretend to be getting sicker. I'll act like I'm following the same pattern as the others. That's too dangerous. It's the only way. We need him to feel confident, comfortable. When he thinks he's succeeding, he'll make a mistake." Alaric hated it, but he agreed. Elowen began her performance. She ate the poisoned meals in front of the household. Then she quietly vomited them up in private and ate the safe food instead. She pretended to grow weaker, to move slower, to spend more time in bed. The servants whispered. The physician looked concerned. The steward watched with satisfaction in his eyes. At 6 months, Elowen called for Master Corliss. She lay in bed, pale and trembling, the perfect picture of a dying woman. "I feel terrible," she whispered, "just like the others described." The physician examined her. "You must rest, Your Grace. These symptoms, they are concerning. What can we do? I'll prepare a special tonic. It should help." He left. Elowen waited until he was gone. Then she sat up, perfectly healthy. "Did you hear that?" she asked Alaric, who had been listening from the adjoining room. "He's in on it. We suspected. Now we know." That night, healer Marin tested the tonic Master Corliss had prepared. It was full of poison. "This would have killed her within days," Marin said quietly. "It's concentrated, designed for a final dose." They had everything they needed, almost. They still did not know why. The answer came from an unexpected source, a young maid named Ellen. She had worked in the castle for 2 years, quiet, nervous, easily overlooked. One night she knocked on Eloin's door. Eloin opened it. Ellen stood trembling in the hallway. "Your Grace," she whispered, "I need to tell you something." "Come in." Ellen stepped inside and glanced around nervously. "I'm scared," she said. "Of what?" "Of what will happen if anyone finds out I told you." Eloin closed the door. "You're safe here. What do you know?" Ellen took a shaky breath. "It's about the steward, Master Heir. Go on. He has daughters, 2 of them. They used to work here, in the castle." Eloin's pulse quickened. "Used to? They were dismissed 10 years ago, right after the old Duke died and Master Alaric inherited." "Why were they dismissed?" Ellen looked down. "Master Alaric never said exactly, but I heard whispers. They had tried to position themselves, to catch his attention, to become more than servants. Understanding crashed over Eloin like a wave. He wanted his daughters to marry into the family." Ellen nodded. "They were beautiful, clever, but they were just servants. The Duke never considered them. He didn't even see them. And when they were dismissed, Master Heir became different, colder. He stopped smiling. He stopped talking to anyone unless it was about work." Eloin's mind raced. "Where are his daughters now?" "I don't know. They left the castle. I never saw them again." After Ellen left, Eloin told Alaric everything. They sat in silence for a long moment. "He's been killing our children," Alaric said slowly, "because I didn't marry his daughters." "Not just that," Eloin's voice was hard. "He's been killing any woman who might give you an heir. Any woman who might continue your bloodline. Because if my blood can't continue, then his daughters were not the only ones rejected. The entire Thornmere line would end. It's not about rejection anymore. It's about revenge." Alaric stood. His hands were shaking. "We end this. Now." "Not yet," Eloin said. "We have proof of poison, but we need him to confess. We need him to admit what he's done and why." "How do we do that?" Eloin smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We make him think he's won." 3 days later, Eloin collapsed during dinner. It was dramatic, spectacular. She clutched the table, gasped for air, then fell to the floor. Alaric rushed to her side. The servants screamed. The physician was summoned. They carried her to bed. Master Corlys examined her with grave concern. "The pregnancy is failing," he announced. "I've seen this before. She has days at most." Alaric played his part perfectly. Grief, rage, despair. "Not again," he shouted. "Not another one," the household whispered. The curse was real. The Duke was doomed, but in the privacy of her chambers, Eloin sat up perfectly healthy. "How did I do?" she asked. "You were terrifying," Alaric said. "I almost believed it myself." They waited. That night, Healer Marin slipped out of the castle. She carried evidence, documents, proof. She went straight to the Queen. The next morning, the Queen's guards arrived at Thornmere Castle, unannounced, unexpected. They came to investigate reports of suspicious deaths. Alaric pretended to be shocked, confused, cooperative. The guards questioned everyone, servants, physicians, the steward. Cadmus Hale remained calm, helpful. He answered every question smoothly. "I've served this family for 30 years, he said. "These tragedies have broken my heart as much as anyone's." The guards found nothing obvious, no smoking gun. But they did not leave. Instead, the Queen herself arrived. She came with her personal investigators, her own physicians, her own food tasters. And she demanded answers. 3 duchesses dead," she said coldly. 9 children lost. This is not natural. This is not chance. She turned to Alaric. "You will submit to a full investigation. Your household, your staff, everyone. Alaric bowed. "Of course, your majesty." The investigation began in earnest, and that night Cadmus Hale made his first mistake. He tried to run. The guards caught him at the edge of the estate. He was on a horse, a bag strapped to his saddle, coins, documents, everything he needed to disappear. They brought him back in chains. The queen herself questioned him. "Why were you fleeing, Master Hale?" "I was not fleeing, your majesty. I was—" "Spare me the lies," her voice cut like a blade. "You were running, which means you are guilty of something." The steward's composure finally cracked. Just a little. His eye twitched. His jaw tightened. "I've done nothing wrong." "Then you won't mind if we search your quarters." They did, and they found everything. Hidden in a locked chest beneath a loose floorboard, vials of poison, notes detailing doses, a journal. The journal was the worst. It contained names, dates, methods. 4 women before Matilda, all poisoned, all killed slowly over months, and detailed notes on every Duchess Alaric had married, every pregnancy, every dose, every death. The queen read it with cold fury. Then she looked at Cadmus Hale with contempt. "You are a murderer, multiple times over." "I did what was necessary," the steward said. "Necessary." The queen's voice rose. "You killed innocent women, innocent children. For what?" For the first time, Cadmus Hale's mask fell away completely. "For justice," he spat. The court erupted, but the queen silenced them with a gesture. "Explain yourself." Cadmus Hale stood in chains before the court, his eyes burned with rage. "I gave my life to this family," he said. 30 years. I served his father. I served his grandfather. I ran this estate. I kept it functioning. I made it great." Alaric stood silent, watching. "I had daughters," Cadmus continued. 2 beautiful, intelligent girls. I raised them in this castle. They grew up here. They knew every stone, every tradition. They were perfect." His voice shook. "When the old duke died and Alaric inherited, I thought, finally my girls would be seen. They were of age, they were accomplished, they were worthy. But he never looked at them. Not once. He brought in noblewomen from across the kingdom. Ladies who knew nothing about this estate, nothing about this family. He tested them, judged them, chose the strongest. But my daughters were never even considered, because they were mine, because their blood was not noble enough." The queen's eyes narrowed. "So you decided to kill." "I decided to make sure his bloodline ended." Cadmus's voice was ice now. "If my daughters could not continue the Thornmere name, then no one would." "You murdered 9 children." "I prevented 9 children from inheriting what my daughters were denied." The court exploded. Nobles shouted. The queen's guards stepped forward, but Alaric raised his hand. Silence fell. He walked toward Cadmus Hale, slowly, deliberately. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the hall. "You think I never saw your daughters?" Cadmus's eyes flickered. "You dismissed them." "I dismissed them because they stole from the estate treasury 3 times, small amounts. But theft is theft." The steward's face went white. "You didn't know that," Alaric continued, "because you never asked why they were dismissed. You assumed. You decided I had rejected them for their blood. But the truth is simpler. They were thieves, and I do not tolerate thieves in my household, noble or not." Cadmus opened his mouth, closed it. No words came. Alaric stepped closer. "You killed 3 women I loved. You killed 9 children I will never meet. You destroyed my life." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And it was all based on a lie you told yourself." The steward's legs gave out. He fell to his knees. "No," he whispered. "No. They were good girls. They would never—" "Check the records," Alaric said to the Queen. "The dismissal papers are signed. The theft is documented." The Queen nodded to her investigators. They left to retrieve the documents. The court waited in silence. When the investigators returned, they carried old ledgers, dismissal papers, signed confessions from the steward's daughters themselves. The Queen read them. Then she looked at Cadmus Hale with disgust. "Your daughters were thieves, and you were too proud to see it." The steward sat broken on the floor. All his rage, all his certainty, gone. "I didn't know," he whispered. "You didn't ask," the Queen said, "and because of that, 13 women are dead." She turned to her guards. "Take him away." Cadmus Hale was executed 5 days later, publicly, in the town square. The entire kingdom came to watch. He did not beg, he did not apologize. He simply stood on the scaffold and stared at nothing. When it was over, his body was burned, his ashes scattered. His name was struck from every record. It was as if he had never existed. His daughters were found living in a distant city. They were arrested, questioned. They confessed to the thefts. They had not known what their father had done afterward. They had thought he had simply convinced the Duke to let them leave quietly. They wept when they learned the truth. The Queen exiled them anyway, not for their father's crimes, but for their own. They were sent to the furthest edge of the kingdom, forbidden from ever using the Hale name again. The kingdom moved on. Trials ended. Investigations closed. New servants were hired. New protocols established. Within 2 months, it was as if the nightmare had never happened. But Alaric and Eowyn did not move on. 3 months after the execution, Eowyn gave birth. She had been pregnant the entire time. Through the investigation, through the trial, through everything. She had hidden it well. The baby was born healthy, strong, a daughter. They named her Matilda, after the first wife, the one who had known the truth but had not lived to see justice. The kingdom celebrated. But Alaric and Eowyn did not throw a grand feast. They held a small ceremony, private, intimate. In the castle gardens they planted 3 trees, one for Matilda, one for Arabella, one for Catherine, the women who had died searching for answers. Eowyn stood before the trees and spoke softly. "You deserved better. You deserved to be believed. You deserved to live." She placed flowers at the base of each tree. "I'm sorry it took so long to find the truth. I'm sorry no one listened." She looked at Alaric. "But we found him, and he will never hurt anyone again." Alaric said nothing. His throat was too tight. That night they sat in the library. The fire burned low. Baby Matilda slept in a cradle nearby. "Do you regret it?" Eowyn asked. "Any of it?" "I regret not seeing the truth sooner. I regret every woman who suffered because I was blind." "You were not blind. You were trusting. There's a difference." "Is there?" Eowyn looked at him. "Yes, because trust is necessary. Without it, we cannot build anything, cannot love anyone, cannot create a life worth living. Trust got them killed. No, evil got them killed. One man's evil, and we stopped him." Alaric looked at the cradle where his daughter slept. "She will grow up knowing their names," he said. "She will know what they sacrificed, what they endured." "Good," Eowyn said. "She should." 6 months later, while renovating the steward's old quarters, workers found something. A hidden compartment in the desk, locked. They brought it to Alaric. He opened it with a cold feeling in his stomach. Inside was a single letter, written in Cadmus Hale's hand, but never sent. It was addressed to his daughters. Alaric read it alone in his study. His hands shook as he turned the pages. The letter was a confession, but not the kind given in court. This was different. Cadmus had written it years ago, right after his daughters were dismissed. In it, he detailed his plan, how he would poison the duchesses, how he would make it look natural, how he would ensure the Thornmere line ended. But at the end, there was something else, a paragraph that made Alaric's blood run cold. I know you stole from the estate. I know what you did. But I do not care. You are my daughters, and if the Duke will not give you the life you deserve, then I will make sure no one else has it either. Alaric read it 3 times. The steward had known. He had known his daughters were thieves. He had known they were dismissed for cause. And he had killed anyway. Not out of ignorance, out of pure spite. Alaric sat in silence for a long time. Then he burned the letter. Eowyn found him an hour later, staring at the ashes. "What was it?" she asked. "Proof," he said, "that evil does not need a reason. It only needs an excuse." 2 years later, Eowyn gave birth again, another daughter. They named her Arabella. The kingdom celebrated. The line was secure. 2 healthy children, 2 living heirs. But Alaric did not celebrate. He stood in the nursery and looked at his daughters. Matilda, dark-haired and serious, already observing everything with sharp eyes. Arabella, fair-haired and laughing, fearless from the moment she was born. "They're perfect," Eowyn said beside him. "They are. But you're thinking about the others," Alaric nodded. "I always am. You can't change the past." "I know, but I can make sure it never happens again." He had already started. New protocols for the household, new oversight, new protections. No single person would ever have that much power again. No single person would ever be able to poison the family from within. Eowyn put her hand on his shoulder. "They would be proud of you, the ones who didn't survive. They would see what you've built, what you've protected." "Do you really believe that?" "Yes, because you didn't give up. You didn't let their deaths be meaningless." She paused. "And neither did I." Alaric looked at her, really looked at her. "You saved us all," he said. "No," Eowyn smiled. "We saved each other." 10 years later, Alaric stood in the castle graveyard. 4 headstones stood in a row. Matilda of Rosavale, Arabella of Silvervale, Catherine of Westmere, and Master Corlys, the physician who had enabled it all. The physician had died of natural causes 2 years after the trial. Old age, a quiet death, too peaceful for what he had done. But death had come nonetheless. Alaric visited the graves often, early in the morning before anyone else was awake. Today he was not alone. His daughter stood beside him. Matilda was 12 now. Arabella was 10. They had asked to come. "These are the women who came before us," Matilda said quietly. "Yes, they died trying to give you an heir. They died because someone murdered them. There's a difference." Arabella looked up at him. "Do you miss them?" Alaric knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Every day, even though you have us? Especially because I have you. You exist because they did not. And that is not fair. Not to them. Not to you." "But it's the truth," Matilda said. "Yes." The girls were quiet for a moment. Then Arabella asked the question Alaric had been dreading. "What if it happens again? What if someone tries to hurt us?" Alaric looked at both of them. "Then I will stop them. Your mother will stop them. The entire kingdom will stop them." "How can you be sure?" "Because we learned, because we remember, because their deaths taught us to be vigilant." He stood and placed a hand on each girl's shoulder. "You will never be unprotected. You will never be unheard. And if something feels wrong, you will speak. And we will listen. You promise?" "I promise." Behind them, footsteps approached. Eowyn appeared. She carried flowers, white roses for Matilda, lavender for Arabella, lily of the valley for Catherine. She placed them on each grave with quiet reverence. They should have lived, she said to the girls. They should have raised children of their own. They should have grown old. They should have had the lives they deserved. Why didn't they? Arabella asked. Because one man decided his pain mattered more than their lives. Was he punished? Yes. But punishment doesn't bring them back. Matilda touched the headstone with her mother's name on it. I'll remember them, she said. I'll make sure everyone remembers. Good, Elowen said. That's how we honor them. By remembering, by learning, by being better. They stood together in the graveyard for a long time, a family built on truth, on loss, on survival, and on the refusal to let evil win. Finally, they turned and walked back toward the castle, but something made Alaric stop. He looked back at the graves one more time, and he saw something that made his blood freeze. There was a fifth headstone, new, freshly carved. It had not been there yesterday. He walked toward it slowly. Elowen and the girls followed. The name carved into the stone made the world tilt beneath his feet. Lady Elowen of Thornmere, beloved wife and mother, may she rest in the peace she earned. There was a date of death, tomorrow's date. Alaric spun around, his heart was pounding. Elowen stood behind him. Her face was pale. That's not possible, she whispered. Someone is sending a message, Alaric said. His mind raced. Who? Who would do this? Cadmus Hale was dead. His daughters were exiled. Master Corlys was buried. Who else had been part of this? And then Alaric remembered. The steward had family, a brother, a sister, cousins. They had all been questioned during the trial, all cleared of involvement. But what if they had been lying? What if they had been waiting? What if this was not over? Elowen grabbed his arm. We need to leave, now. They ran, through the graveyard, across the gardens, toward the castle. But when they burst through the doors, the guards were gone. The servants were gone. The halls were empty, silent. Alaric's breath came in gasps. Where is everyone? A voice answered from the shadows. Right where I left them. A figure stepped into the light. A woman, middle-aged, dressed in servant's clothes. Alaric did not recognize her, but Elowen did. You, she whispered. The woman smiled. Hello, sister. The end. Or is it? Drop a comment below. Do you think Elowen's sister is the real villain? Or is there something even darker happening at Thornmere Castle? Your theories are always welcome here at Power and Silence Whispers. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that notification bell, because this story is far from over.